In this world, you reap what you sow. Remember, the law of karma spares no one. Nick drove his sleek Mercedes across the long bridge spanning the Hudson River on his way to work. As he cruised down the familiar road, he casually whistled along to the tune playing on the car radio. Today, the company where Nick worked was welcoming a new director of sales. Word had been going around that she was none other than the daughter of the company's chairman. She had just returned from studying in the US and was now planning to become a father with the family business. Nick had heard a lot about her, that she's smart and accomplished, but also incredibly beautiful. He had never met her in person, so today he was especially eager to get to work early and see for himself just how stunning and impressive she really was. His brand new car sped smoothly down the usual route. The streetlights and skinny little trees lining the median divider looked the same as always, frail and stunted from years of dust and wind. Suddenly, something to the left of the steering wheel caught his eye. A newly installed mile marker stood out against the concrete, white numbers on a deep blue background, boldly stating mile 13. It looked eerie, almost out of place. It had been planted right in the middle of the bridge's divider. He smiled to himself. Must be the Department of Transportation wasting time again, measuring roads and sticking markers wherever they can. Useless bunch. He chuckled sarcastically. Of all places, why smack dab in the middle of a bridge? The odd sign disappeared from view in a blur, and Nick's thoughts quickly turned back to the absurdity of the world around him. Glancing at his watch, he noticed he was cutting it close. He stepped on the gas and sped through the last stretch of road until the company gates came into view. At the gate, the old security guard opened the entrance for him, beaming. "Early today, Mr. Nick." Nick gave a brief smile and a nonchalant nod. He hated people who tried to cozy up to the successful. That guard was always grinning and brown-nosing every employee he saw, but after all these years, the best he could do was a lowly security post. Who does he think he is trying to get friendly with? After all, Nick was the company's director of human resources, second only to the chairman himself. Below him were all the department heads. He liked to think of himself as the chairman's right-hand man. And now, with the chairman's daughter joining the company as the left hand, Nick knew this was his chance. He walked confidently through the lobby, leaving the cheerful security guard behind. Inside the boardroom, everyone was already seated and waiting. Luckily, the chairman hadn't arrived yet. Nick slid into his usual chair, a symbol of his status and importance. Only one person ranked above him, and today, someone new would stand beside him, the chairman's daughter. Part of him was pleased, though his face stayed serious. This would be the perfect chance to get close to her. If I play this right, my life could change forever. Moments later, the chairman, Mr. Thomas Grant, walked into the room, followed by a young woman in her mid-20s. At first sight, Nick was stunned. Her beauty was mesmerizing, elegant, poised, and almost regal. Everyone in the room fell silent, eyes locked on her. She was tall and slender, with fair skin, a well-proportioned face, and her hair tied in a neat bun. She exuded class and charm. Mr. Grant broke the silence. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Kimberly Grant, our new director of sales. Please give her a warm welcome to the company family." The room filled with applause and murmurs of admiration. Kimberly smiled shyly and stood up. "Hello, everyone. I'm honored and excited to be here and to work alongside all of you. I hope we can grow the company even further together." She gave a polite bow. Everyone noticed how down-to-earth and humble she was, no sign of the entitled attitude you might expect from a boss's daughter. She wasn't acting like royalty. She was approachable. As she raised her head and glanced across the room, her eyes met Nick's. He was staring at her intently. Kimberly blushed and quickly turned away, leaving behind a delicate smile that lingered in Nick's mind. That one moment was all he needed. He had made up his mind. He was going to win her over, no matter what. The meeting didn't last long. That afternoon, as Nick lounged in his office, daydreaming about Kimberly's smile, "Hi Nick, I've got some free time. Can you drive me to lunch?" Whatever else was said, Nick eagerly nodded and agreed, his face lit with excitement. After hanging up, he leaned back in his chair, smiling to himself. At 11:45, Nick pulled his car out of the garage and waited at the front gate. Moments later, Mr. Grant emerged, with Kimberly by his side. She held an umbrella over her father's head and opened the car door. As she did, she shot Nick a sideways glance and smiled coyly. He knew then, his lips had scored him some points. He smiled inwardly, confident in his charm. They drove to an upscale restaurant on Madison Avenue. Lunch was relaxed and friendly. Mr. Grant chatted with Nick like family, which only deepened Nick's resolve. "This is it. Marry the daughter, become the heir. This is my shot." After lunch, Nick dropped Mr. Grant off at his home and took Kimberly with him to a business meeting with a major client. Normally, Nick would have gone alone, but he wasn't going to waste this golden opportunity to spend more time with her. As they drove, Nick cracked jokes and told charming stories to make her laugh. Kimberly, like a gentle spring breeze, smiled and played along with his banter. Suddenly, Nick turned to her and asked, "So, do you have a boyfriend?" She blushed and laughed softly. "No, not yet." "That's kind of a weird question." The car grew quiet for a moment after that. Two people, one car, and two different trains of thought. Then Nick broke the silence again. "Do you have a business card? I'll be introducing you to the client, and it'd be easier if they had your contact." It was a convenient excuse. Truthfully, he just wanted her phone number to set his plan in motion. Kimberly, unaware of his hidden motives, handed over her card. He slipped it into his pocket, smiling, as the sunlit road unfurled before them. Later that night. "Hello, Kimberly." "Yes, this is Kimberly." "Who's calling?" "It's Nick." "What are your plans tonight?" "It's Sunday." "No, not really. I just got back to the States, so I don't have many friends here yet." "Do you like horror movies?" "I wasn't sure, so I thought I'd ask." "If you're interested, I'd love to take you to one tonight." There was a brief pause. Kimberly seemed to be considering it, and then said yes. A warm, fluttering joy filled her chest. Maybe she did have a soft spot for Nick, the handsome, smooth-talking guy with a disarming smile. Time passed quickly. Before long, they made their relationship public. The two were inseparable, as if destiny had written their names side by side. Kimberly loved Nick with all her heart, his looks, his wealth, his charm. As they say, women fall in love through their ears. And as fate would have it, one night after a few too many drinks, Kimberly gave herself to Nick, right there in his car. She thought it was true love. She believed she was living a fairy tale. But she didn't know. She didn't know that Nick had never truly loved her. That everything, every smile, every word, was part of a bigger plan. A long con he had been crafting for ages. He was using her. Using her to get into her father's fortune. To marry her, then take it all. And Kimberly, poor Kimberly, loved him blindly. Chris, true to his womanizing nature, was always seeking out new women to flirt with. Despite already having Tracy, a beautiful, kind-hearted girlfriend at his side, he couldn't resist chasing her others. One day at a coffee shop, he met Lon. She was a waitress at a place called the Kimchi Cafe on Van Home Street. Always well-dressed and made up, Lon turned heads wherever she went. Her beauty didn't escape Chris's lustful eyes. Just like so many times before, he began charming her. And like so many before her, Lon was eventually drawn in by his dashing looks and the gifts he lavished on her. But unlike Tracy, Lon had a gentle, rustic beauty, a countryside girl trying to find her place in the city. Her earthy sincerity captivated Chris. This time, he fell for Lon, truly. Not like the calculated, transactional relationship he had with Tracy. So Chris continued to play his part, lovingly devoted to Tracy on the surface, while secretly having an affair with Lauren. Sometimes he felt proud of himself, convinced he had successfully deceived two beautiful women without either of them suspecting a thing. During those moments, he would sit alone, smirking with deep satisfaction. But one day, everything changed. Chris received a message from Lon. It was a photo of a pregnancy test, 2 red lines, and the message. "I'm pregnant. What now? Let's get married, okay?" He broke into a cold sweat. Panic set in. How could she be pregnant? He was always careful, always. He was confused, but more than that, he was terrified. If the truth came out, he could lose everything. What was he going to do? After a long pause, he took a deep breath to steady himself. Then he called Lon and asked her to meet him at the riverbank where they often secretly met. That evening, after work, Chris didn't even go home to change or eat. He headed straight to meet Lon. She was already there, waiting for him. When she saw him, her face lit up with joy. She wanted to run to him, to hold him tight, to feel loved, to feel less alone. More than anything, she wanted to tell him the news again. She was carrying his child. She loved him deeply, even knowing he had Tracy. But love had blinded her. She was willing to share the man she loved. And now, she believed this child would change everything, that Chris would leave Tracy and be with her open, loving her. But she was wrong. Chris arrived with a cold, unreadable expression. No smile, no warmth. His demeanor wiped the joy right off Lan's face. They both stood there in silence, facing the murky floodwaters of the river. Between them was a wall, the unborn child growing inside Lon. She could sense something was wrong. Then, Chris finally spoke, his voice steady. "Have you really thought this through? Do you really want to marry me?" Lon was stunned. That was exactly what she'd hoped for. But still, something felt off. "I agree," he said. "Let's get married. I'll take care of you and our baby." Lon was overwhelmed. Her heart soared, drowning out any lingering doubts. She held him tightly, as if trying to hold on to a fragile love that might save her. She felt like the river could sweep everything away if she let go even slightly. Chris leaned in and whispered in her ear, "I'll love you and our baby. Don't worry." He even smiled, a gentle, tender smile. But anyone paying close attention would have seen something strange in his eyes. "Come on, let's go get some food," he said softly. "I'm starving. I didn't even eat dinner." Lon, docile as a rain-soaked kitten, followed him willingly. They went to a fancy restaurant. Chris ordered all her favorite dishes, a bottle of expensive wine, and a table full of food. Lon was glowing with happiness. She thought life was finally turning into favor. After all her struggles, she finally met Chris, and he truly loved her. They would be together. Thinking that, she ate with joy. She drank glass after glass of wine that Chris poured for her, until she was tipsy and unsteady. Chris took her home, to his place. He carried her to his bedroom. Lon lay there, drunk and drifting in and out of sleep, her body warm with alcohol and desire. Chris tenderly embraced her. They made love, just like the first time they were together, in that same room, lost in passion. But no one could have foreseen what came next. Afterwards, with Lon fast asleep, Chris quietly slipped out of bed. He walked to the window and removed a thin nylon cord from the curtain. He wrapped it tightly around his neck. Then, with great determination, he approached Lon. He hesitated. But then his eyes burned with murderous intent. The demon inside him had awakened. He leaned over her sleeping form and carefully slipped the cord around her soft white neck, where the pulse of life beat steadily beneath her skin. Lon was completely unaware. Lost in a dream, still floating in the haze of love and alcohol. She didn't see death coming. And then, he pulled. The cord tightened. He straddled her body, yanking with all his strength. It was too late. Lon woke, gasping, clawing at his hands, struggling to break free. Her eyes bulged, bloodshot, full of agony. She was fighting not just for her life, but for her unborn child. But she couldn't escape. Chris was too strong. Her final moments were filled with fury, hatred, heartbreak. The man she loved, the father of her child, was killing her. 2 lives ended that night. Her last meal, her final drink, and the lovemaking before death, those were Chris's final gifts. As he pressed down, yelling with rage, he screamed. "You have to die. You can't use that bastard child to blackmail me. You're ruining everything. If you hadn't gotten pregnant, you'd still be alive. But now, I have to get rid of you. You don't get to destroy my plan." He pulled until she stopped moving. Her body went limp beneath him. Her eyes, wide open and burning with hatred, stared at him. Unblinking. Accusing. As if they would follow him into the next life, seeking revenge. Chris sat there, dripping with sweat. The room suddenly felt freezing. He had just killed someone. No, 2 people. He began to shake uncontrollably. But the sweat wouldn't stop. The silence in the room was suffocating. He thought he could hear her joints stiffening in the quiet. He paced back and forth, panicking, clutching his head. What should he do with the body? Then an idea struck him. A terrible, twisted idea, something he'd seen once in a horror film. That night, in Tracy's bedroom, the nightlight began flickering wildly before dying completely. The room was plunged into darkness. Only a faint glow from the streetlight outside bled in through the window. Wind howled through the trees. The shutters banged against the wall. A storm was coming. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning lit up the sky, casting shadows across Tracy's room. The thunder that followed woke her with a jolt. She had just been trapped in a horrifying nightmare. She sat up, heart pounding, covered in cold sweat. It had been so long since she'd dreamed, let alone had such a vivid nightmare. In her dream, she saw a man murdering a woman after having sex with her. The woman died horribly, suffocated. The man's eyes were filled with savage madness. And the woman's eyes, full of agony, betrayal, and rage, were sealed in her mind. Why is the room so dark? I swear I left the nightlight on. Tracy wiped her forehead and reached for the switch. Nothing happened. The storm raged outside, wind howling, rain slapping against the windows. The room felt icy cold, not just physically, but with something unnatural. Like something was watching her. She mustered her courage and walked to the window to close it. As she looked out onto the rain-soaked courtyard, she saw a pale figure, a woman in white, soaked from head to toe, standing motionless. Tracy blinked. Doubted her eyes. A flash of lightning exploded across the sky, and suddenly, the figure was gone. Shaken, she turned back toward the bed, and screamed. Right there in the middle of the room was a woman, hair soaked and hanging in her face, dressed in a white, soaking wet gown, arms reaching out toward Tracy as if to strangle her. Tracy screamed and bolted for the bed, pulling the blanket over her head and crying out. "Dad! Dad! There's a ghost in the house. Daddy, help me." Hearing her screams, her father, Mr. Thomas, rushed in. He burst through the door and flipped the light switch, instantly flooding the room with light. Strangely, everything seemed normal now. The light worked. But earlier, no matter how many times Tracy tried, the switch had done nothing. She sat on her bed, wrapped in blankets, still sobbing. Rainwater had soaked the floor. Mr. Thomas rushed to her side, hugging her tightly. "It's okay, I'm here now. It's all right." Tracy clung to him, crying. "Daddy, there's a ghost. I saw her. She was all in white, soaked in rain. She tried to choke me. I saw her in the yard, then she was here, right in this room. Over there, in the corner." He held her, comforting her gently. "It's all right, sweetheart. You've been working too hard. It must have been a hallucination, a bad dream. There are no ghosts in this house. I'm here now. Everything's going to be okay." With her father by her side, Emily felt more at ease. She rested her head on his chest and drifted off to sleep, exhausted and still shaking. Outside, the rain continued to pour heavily. A white shadow silently stood under the downpour, gazing up at the window of the room where Emily was sleeping. After a moment, the figure began to fade, then disappeared into the curtain of rain. Seeing that Emily had fallen into a deep sleep, Mr. Harris gently laid her down on the bed, carefully pulled the blanket over her, and turned the nightlight down low. Quietly, he closed her door and returned to his own room. His mind was swirling with thoughts. Who was that ghostly figure? Why was it haunting Emily? As a successful businessman and a staunch materialist, Mr. Harris had never believed in ghosts or the supernatural. He was convinced that Emily, overwhelmed with work and pressure, had simply imagined things. He decided that from now on, he would scale back his workload and focus more on taking care of his body. With that, he turned off the lights and went to bed. It was already past midnight. At 2 a.m., the ringing of her phone jolted Emily awake. The residual fear from her earlier encounter still lingered. Though she was still anxious, she now began to believe it might have just been a hallucination caused by stress. She reached for her phone. It was Alex. Strange, she thought. Why is he calling me at this hour? Hello? Alex? It's so late, what's going on? On the other end, it was Alex's voice. Can you come over? I need you. His voice was no longer calm and composed like usual. There was panic in it, something Emily had never heard from him before. Combined with the terrifying experience she had just gone through hours earlier, this phone call filled her with a sense of dread. She was about to ask him what was wrong, but the line went dead. After a moment of hesitation, Emily made up her mind. She grabbed a coat, her phone, her car keys, and rushed down to the garage to drive to Alex's place. She loved him deeply and worried for him more than anything else. No matter what, she had to see what was going on. Meanwhile, Mr. Harris was still tossing and turning in bed. Hearing the sound of Emily's car in the garage startled him. He wanted to go down and stop her, ask where she was headed at such a late hour. But before he could act, Emily had already sped off into the night. Deeply uneasy about her unusual behavior, he stood in silence for a moment, then made up his mind. Throwing on a coat and rain gear, Mr. Harris quietly took his motorbike and followed her. The rain was torrential, possibly signaling a storm. Emily drove along a deserted road, with no one else in sight. The yellow streetlights shone dimly through the rain, casting an eerie glow that made the street seem wider, emptier, and colder. She stepped on the gas, letting the car speed off into the night, leaving a trail through the storm. Arriving at Alex's gate, she didn't ring the bell, afraid of waking neighbors or drawing attention. Instead, she took out her phone and called him. The dial tone rang for a few seconds before he picked up. Hey, can you come out of here? Alex's voice responded, a mix of relief and urgency. Give me a second, I'll be right out. A moment later, he appeared at the gate, hoisting a large sack over his shoulder. It looked heavy. Emily was about to ask what it was, but Alex quickly cut her off. Pop the trunk. Hurry. Though still confused, Emily held the umbrella in one hand and opened the trunk with the other. After dumping the sack inside, Alex said, Wait here. That's not all, there's another one. Seeing him struggling, soaked in rain, Emily offered. Is it heavy? Let me help you carry it. Though she had no idea what was inside, she could see him straining early. She couldn't bear to stand by and do nothing. Emily didn't say another word. Out of love and concern, she silently followed Alex into the house. From the shadows of a nearby tree, someone was watching them. It was Mr. Harris. He had been tracking them the entire time, hiding just out of sight. As soon as Emily stepped into Alex's house, she felt a chill run down her spine. The place felt abandoned, cold and lifeless, as if no one had lived there for a long time. Every nerve in her body was on edge. The dimness and smell of the house made her skin crawl. Alex led her to the bathroom, where the second sack lay. It was smaller and lighter than the first one. He turned to her and said, "Help me with this one." Emily didn't respond. Silently, she stepped forward. Another wave of dread ran through her body. The sack was damp and sticky. A metallic smell filled the room, strong and nauseating. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She wanted to ask what was inside, but stopped herself. She didn't want to upset him. To her, Alex was everything, her love, her future, her happiness. She would do anything for him. Together, they lifted the second sack into the car. When Alex slammed the trunk shut, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating his face, calm, expressionless, and chilling. Then he got in the car and drove off. The rain grew heavier. Wind howled like a chorus of angry spirits. Thunder rumbled ominously. But Alex had only one thought in his mind, the bridge he crossed every day on his way to work. It would be deserted at this hour. The perfect place. He was certain no one would find out. In a few days, the sacks would float downriver and out to sea, and no one would suspect him. He glanced at the clock, 3:15 a.m., and hit the gas. The whole ride was silent. Neither Alex nor Emily spoke a word. Each was lost in their own thoughts. In less than 15 minutes, they reached the bridge. The familiar white milestone, KM13, glowed eerily in the headlights. As Alex slowed the car and approached the center of the bridge, Mr. Harris, still on his motorbike, also slowed down and stopped at a distance, hiding in the rain. From where he stood, he could observe everything without being seen. Alex parked the car and stepped out. Emily followed, holding the umbrella over him. A flash of lightning lit up the sky again, exposing his once handsome face now cold, hardened, inhuman. His eyes were sharp and empty. He popped open the trunk, hoisted the first sack with effort, and threw it into the river. The second one felt heavier. He struggled. Emily, still unaware of what she was helping with, reached out to assist. Together, they carried it to the edge and dropped it into the dark waters. Alex clapped his hands together and let out a smirk. To him, it was over. A clean getaway. No one would ever know. But just then, another lightning bolt split the sky, lighting up everything, the face of the girl who unknowingly became his accomplice, and the silent witness hiding in the shadows. The KM13 marker gleamed, white letters on blue. The rain poured like tears, the wind screamed with sorrow, the thunder roared in rage. Nature itself seemed to mourn the dead and curse the murderer who now stood by without a hint of remorse. He was no longer a man. He was a monster in human skin. And he would have to pay for what he'd done. By 5 a.m., Emily was driving Alex back home. Though she said nothing, her heart was filled with unanswered questions. Questions she was too afraid to ask. As they arrived at the gate of his villa, the rain had stopped. The first light of dawn broke through the stormy sky, casting a blood-red hue across the horizon. Alex waved goodbye to the woman who didn't yet know she was an accomplice. Emily drove home. As she pulled into the driveway, she saw Mr. Harris standing outside doing stretches, as if he had been there the whole time, waiting. "Emily," he called out, "where were you all night?" Caught off guard, Emily hesitated, then told him about Alex's call and how she went to check on him. But she left out the part about the sacks and the river. Not that it mattered. Mr. Harris had seen everything. He had only asked to confirm what Emily knew, or rather, what she didn't. Exhausted from the sleepless night, Emily went upstairs and collapsed into bed, unaware that her father stood downstairs, staring off into the distance, overwhelmed by questions. Just then, the phone rang. Hello? Alex? Yes, sir, Alex's voice replied weakly. I'm sick. I think the rain last night got to me. I wanted to ask if I could take a few days off. Mr. Harris's mind was now swarming with doubt. This young man he had once considered a future son-in-law, someone he had thought worthy of taking over his company, was now a total mystery. A danger. I see. Are you feeling very ill? He asked. Not too bad, Alex said smoothly. Just need to rest for a few days. All right then, Mr. Harris replied. Take care. I'll have someone cover your work. Get some rest. Alex gave a sweet thank you, sir, and hung up. Mr. Harris let out a long sigh. His face darkened with thought. Then, quietly, he stepped back inside the house. After calling in sick to work, Ethan went to the fridge, pulled out a small glass jar wrapped tightly in a black plastic bag, then got into his car and drove off. Meanwhile, in Emily's bedroom, she was drifting in and out of sleep, completely exhausted after a sleepless night. In that groggy half-conscious state, she found herself standing in a dark room. Outside, a storm was howling. It was a night filled with rain and thunder. In the dim shadows of the room, she saw two people on a bed in the corner. They were making love. Then, she saw the girl fall asleep. The man quietly picked up a rope and began to strangle her. The girl crashed and clawed, trying to break free, but it was useless. Everything was eerily silent. Emily stood there, horrified, watching the man take the life of the poor girl. She wanted to scream, but her limbs wouldn't move. Her mouth was frozen. It felt like some supernatural force was compelling her to witness the entire scene. Suddenly, a flash of blue lightning illuminated the room through the window. She saw the lifeless body of the woman lying naked on the bed, eyes wide open, bloodshot. And the murderer, he slowly turned his head toward Emily. And then, in the gloomy, flickering shadows of the stormy room, she clearly saw Ethan's face, the face of the man she had once loved blindly, and now the face of the killer. He stared at her with an intense, soulless gaze. The warmth and kindness once in his eyes had vanished, replaced by chill and cruelty. Then he grinned. It was a disturbing, twisted smile that echoed hauntingly in the still night. The sound of his deranged laughter mixed with the storm outside, making Emily shudder to the core. She struggled, desperate to escape the nightmare. Never before had she felt such disgust for the man she once loved, for the cold-blooded murderer he truly was. And then everything began to fade away. A flash of lightning startled her again. Now she found herself standing in the doorway of a bathroom. Blood was everywhere on the floor. Ethan was inside, using a butcher knife from the kitchen to dismember the body. The sound of the blade sawing through bone was gut-wrenching. First, he severed both feet, then the knees, followed by the thighs. Then the hands, elbows, and arms. Finally, the head. From a distance, Emily saw him grab the matted hair of the corpse and bring the knife down hard on her neck. The head was severed. Blood streamed and pooled across the tiles. Ethan tossed the head into a corner. He then pulled out a smaller knife, sliced open the woman's abdomen, and began cutting deeper. Blood oozed from the incision as he reached in and pulled out a blood-soaked fetus, still red, grotesque, horrifying in the dim light of the room. With his hands drenched in gore, he placed the fetus into the glass jar. Then he gently laid his hand on the corpse's chest, sliced open the left side, and extracted the still warm heart. He placed the heart into the same jar, sealed it carefully, and returned it to the fridge. the severed limbs and head into one large bag, and the torso into another. He turned on the tap to wash away any evidence, then made a phone call. A moment later, Emily saw herself helping Ethan carry the two heavy bags to the car. Together, they drove to a bridge and dumped the contents into the river below. The entire sequence unfolded like a slow-motion horror film. The lead characters were Ethan and herself. She tried to escape from this nightmare, but it was as if a supernatural force held her in place, forcing her to witness everything. Then, a voice echoed from somewhere distant and dark. Blood debt must be repaid in blood. You abetted evil, you will pay the price. A chilling laugh. Emily jolted away, soaked in fear. She cried out, "Dad! Dad!" But there was no response. She figured her father must have gone to work. She reached for her phone and saw a message he had left. "You looked exhausted, so I let you sleep. I'll have someone else take care of the company stuff today, just rest. I have a meeting with a partner tonight, so I'll be home late. Eat something first, okay?" Reading her father's message didn't bring her comfort. The nightmare still gripped her, and there was a deep chill in the air around her. She had the distinct sense that someone was watching her, that someone was right behind her. The feeling made her skin crawl. She felt terrified, and utterly alone. Alone in her own home. At that moment, not far away, through the wrought iron gates of Ethan's estate, Mr. Thomas was silently observing. He had been keeping a close eye on Ethan's suspicious movements. When the gates creaked open and Ethan's car pulled out, Mr. Thomas quietly followed at a safe distance so as not to be detected. Ethan's car weaved through a series of narrow alleys before stopping in front of an old house on Hongju Street, number 660. From the outside, the place looked like an aged, ivy-covered mansion. Time had worn it down. Mr. Thomas stayed hidden, maintaining a careful distance. Ethan stepped out of the car, holding the jar tightly wrapped in black plastic. He rang the bell. An old man answered, Mr. Jasper, a well-known sorcerer in the region. He grinned as he welcomed Ethan inside. Seated in the shadowy living room, Ethan said, "Master, I've brought you everything you asked for. Please help me complete the ritual we discussed, help me gain wealth and power." The old sorcerer cackled. "Don't worry, I'll help you. Just make sure I don't come out of this empty-handed." Ethan smirked. "You have my word. Once it's done, I'll make sure you're well taken care of." Mr. Jasper led Ethan into his shrine. The room was dim, filled with smoke from burning incense. Strange, demonic statues lined the altar. Jasper unwrapped the jar, revealing the black emptiness in the now purple heart. He placed it on the altar, lit incense, and began chanting. Then he took out a knife and said, "Now you must seal a pact with the spirits, using your own blood. After 49 days, the spirit of the demon child will awaken and serve your every command. Your desires will become reality." Ethan obeyed. He pricked his fingertip and let 3 drops of blood fall into the jar. Strangely, the blood dried instantly and seemed to dissolve into the fetus and heart. Jasper then took a strip of yellow silk, dipped his brush in red ink, and began painting a talisman while chanting in a language Ethan didn't recognize. He finished by sealing the jar with the talisman and covering it with a red cloth. Back in the living room, Jasper turned to Ethan. "This is just between you and me. Now go. In 49 days, the demon child will be ready and will give you everything you desire. I'll tell you if anything comes up." Ethan left, completely devoid of guilt or remorse. On the contrary, he felt secretly thrilled. In just a few weeks, once the demon child was ready, it would serve his every need. He thought to himself, "There's no turning back now. If I want to change my fate, I have to commit fully. With dark magic on my side, success is guaranteed." He drove home with quiet confidence. At Emily's house, after reading her father's message, she went downstairs to make a meal, then returned to bed. She felt feverish, likely from being out in the rain all night. She slipped into a restless sleep without realizing it. In her fevered dreams, she heard the sorrowful cry of a woman, echoing through the empty house into the night. Then came the sound of a baby crying, the wailing of a newborn. A pain-filled, helpless cry. She heard the woman trying to soothe the baby, humming a lullaby. "Hush now, my child, go to sleep. So I may fetch water to wash away pain deep. The human heart is cruel and wide. But fate and karma won't be denied. Hush now, my child, hush and rest." In the dead of night, a lullaby echoed through the darkness, mournful and sorrowful, like a dirge steeped in hatred and regret. The song seemed to cry out for justice, a haunting reminder of karmic retribution. Emily jolted. Before her was the pitch-black bedroom. She reached over to switch on the light, but nothing happened. In the dim corner near the window, she could barely make out the silhouette of a woman cradling a newborn. The lullaby drifted back into her ears. Emily focused her gaze. Yes, there was clearly a woman by the window. She wore a white dress, her arms rocking a baby that cried faintly, as if the sound was coming from another realm. Then, the lullaby and the baby's cries abruptly stopped. A heavy, terrifying silence fell. Suddenly, Emily heard a sickening crack, like bones breaking. Horror washed over her as the figure in white began to turn its head, but only the head turned. The rest of the body remained facing the window. The face was pale, hollow-eyed, blood dripping from the sockets. The mouth was split open from ear to ear as though torn apart. Long black hair hung loosely, veiling a grotesque face. Most terrifying of all, the ghost turned only its head toward her. The rest of the body stood still, holding the infant tightly. Panic surged through Emily. She screamed, tried to bolt from the room, but the door wouldn't budge. She banged and screamed for help, but there was no one home to hear her cries. Then she saw it, the face. That corpse-like face from Ethan's bedroom. The wide, unblinking eyes. The same face that had haunted her dreams. She could never forget it. And the crying baby, who was it? It was the cursed fetus, the one in the last jar. Suddenly, the ghost's body tore apart. The baby slipped from her arms and landed right on Emily. It stared directly at her, clutching a red, fleshy mass dripping with blood. It lifted the thing to its mouth and began sucking with wet, slurping sounds, like a child nursing. Its eyes flashed with rage, and then it laughed, high-pitched and maniacal. The room seemed to sink into darkness and madness, consumed by the child's twisted laughter. Two burlap sacks suddenly appeared, suspended before her. Emily wanted to scream, but something was choking her, gripping her throat, preventing any sound. The bags dropped to the floor. A severed head rolled out, eyes wide open and staring. A nauseating stench of blood and rot filled the air, making Emily gag. Then she saw the smaller limbs, the arms, hands, legs, and torso, all of the belly sliced open, guts dangling, slowly assembling themselves into the shape of a person. It staggered upright, picked up the head, and set it back onto its neck. Now whole again, the figure stepped closer. In place of a heart, there was a deep, black void in its chest. It approached Emily, who had backed up against the wall, and raised its hand to choke her. "Give me back my child's life. Give it back," the ghost hissed. "You and your father killed me for your fortune. You threw me into the river with that bastard. I died, torn apart. I was so cold, so cold." The voice echoed with pain and fury, resonating from a distant place. Emily lunged forward in a last desperate act, grabbing anything she could find and hurling it at the ghost. But nothing worked. Long crept closer. Emily could feel the chill of death tightening around her. The ghost's hands gripped her neck with overwhelming hatred. Darkness took hold, and just before Emily lost consciousness, she could still hear the baby's twisted, mocking laughter. Then, everything went black. Mr. Thomas arrived home. He rang the bell over and over, but Emily didn't answer. He got out of the car, unlocked the gate, and drove in. Emily. Why are all the lights off? Emily. No reply. A cold gust of wind blew through, raising goosebumps on his arms. Uneasy, he rushed upstairs to her room and burst through the door. He switched on the light. The room was a mess, furniture knocked over, items scattered everywhere. He ran to her. Emily. What happened, sweetie? Emily. She didn't move. He shook her, called her name, but she lay there motionless like a corpse. He pressed his hand to her nose. Thank God, she was still breathing. He quickly pulled out his phone and called an ambulance. His heart pounded with fear. Emily was his only child. His wife had died giving birth to her. He had raised her alone ever since. Now, he had no idea what horror had driven her to this state. The next morning, at the hospital, Emily woke up, screaming. She clawed at her own clothes, pulling her hair, shouting wildly. Where's my baby? Give me back my baby. Thomas rushed to her bedside. At first, he was relieved to see her conscious, but her madness broke his heart. He called for the doctors. When the medical staff arrived, they were shocked to find Emily standing by the window, cradling a pillow in her arms, singing a lullaby in a soft, motherly tone. As a nurse tried to gently take the pillow away, Emily snarled and lashed out, attacking like a lioness protecting her cub. Unable to calm her down, the doctor, nurses, and Mr. Thomas had no choice but to restrain her and administer a sedative. As Emily slowly slipped back into unconsciousness in her father's arms, Thomas's tears fell silently. Later, outside the room, the doctor spoke gravely. Your daughter has suffered severe psychological trauma. Her mind is fractured. Right now, she's in a state of deep psychosis. I recommend transferring her to a psychiatric hospital where we can begin long-term treatment. Thomas nodded slowly, eyes filled with sorrow. Tears streamed down his aged face. He gazed out the window at the gray, clouded sky. 7 days passed. Though Emily's physical health improved, her mind remained lost. She often stood at the window, cradling a pillow and softly humming lullabies, her eyes vacant, staring into the void. Then Ethan came to visit. The moment he stepped into the room, Emily snapped. She looked down at the pillow in her arms and whispered, "Look, sweetheart, Daddy's come to visit." Then she raised her head and stared directly at Ethan. Her hair hung over her face, hiding her expression. Suddenly, she flung the pillow aside and let out a high-pitched, maniacal laugh. She lunged at Ethan, her hands around his throat. "Give back my baby. Give back my baby, you monster. You murderer. You have to die." Ethan fought to escape her grip, face pale with panic. With the help of Mr. Thomas and the nurses, he finally broke free. Mr. Thomas pushed him out of the room. Terrified, Ethan fled, leaving behind the echoing screams of Emily still ringing in his ears. At home, Ethan collapsed onto the couch, shaking. How did Emily die? Was she insane, or had the spirit told her? He relived it clearly in his mind, like it had just happened. It had been a week. Why hadn't the bodies been found? What if Land's ghost really had come back? Head pounding, he stumbled to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of strong liquor, poured a glass, and downed it. Then another. He wanted to forget the horror, the guilt, the blood. He was unraveling. Suddenly, he remembered something. He fumbled for his phone and called Mr. Jaya. The dial tone droned on, unanswered. Frustrated, Ethan threw the phone aside and poured another drink. As the alcohol seeped into his bloodstream, he drifted into a drunken sleep. In his dream, he saw a woman in a white dress standing on a bridge, that bridge, the one marked for milestone 13. She waved at him with one hand. The other other held a child. A Mercedes sped toward them, crashing into mother and child, careening into the river. The water turned red. Countless ghostly hands reached from the depths, wailing. Then the woman and the child were on the bridge again, smiling at him, lips pulled back in a hideous grin. Their laughter echoed, shrill and unnatural. The car sank beneath the blood-soaked current. Ethan shot up, gasping. His shirt was drenched in cold sweat. It was her. It was Lon. Her spirit. And the baby, that was the unborn child. But hadn't the ritualists said the spell would work? Why had they returned? Then came the sounds, soft lullabies, gentle crying, echoing through his house. Drunk and dizzy, Ethan stumbled upstairs toward the source. The crying stopped. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating. He opened the door. A woman lay naked on his bed, beckoning. In a trance, he stepped closer. And froze. It was Lon. Her eyes were wide open, filled with rage. From under the bed, a head rose. A baby's head. Grotesque and monstrous, sunken eye sockets, gaping jaws with jagged teeth. A few wisps of hair. And horns. Lan's body fell apart. His severed head rolled to his feet. Ethan turned ghostly pale. He tried to scream, but no sound came. The air swallowed his cries. The bed was soaked in blood, the sheets red and clinging. The child, a demon, crawled toward him, heart in its mouth, and laughed. Then Lan's voice echoed. Scared now, Ethan? Give me back my life. Give my baby justice. Blood must be paid with blood. And then came her laugh, twisted, mad, and unholy. Ethan mustered all his strength, yanked the door open, and bolted out of the room. He jumped into his car and sped off. He was panicked, unsure if this was a nightmare or reality. His mind was in chaos. He had no sense of direction. He floored the gas pedal without knowing where he was going. The car drove through the night. Somehow, perhaps drawn by unseen forces, it stopped in front of a familiar house, 606, Hongju Street. It was the home of Master Jayap, the spiritual medium. Ethan turned off the engine, flung the door open, and rushed to ring the doorbell, so frantically he didn't even bother to close the car door behind him. He waited, but no one answered. He tried pushing the gate. It creaked open. Unlocked. He was surprised, but hurried through the wide courtyard. The house was dark. No lights on. A chilling, oppressive fear crept over him. He stumbled through the dark, groping along the walls. Suddenly, he tripped over something on the floor and fell face first. In a panic, he scrambled to find the light switch. When the lights came on, he was greeted by a horrifying scene. The living room was in total disarray, as if ransacked in a frenzy. Blood splattered across the floor, and bloody handprints, both large and small, were smeared on the walls. He followed the blood trail to the altar room. There, he froze in horror. Master Jayap was slumped in a pool of blood, his lifeless eyes wide open in terror. His hands were wrapped tightly around his own throat. His tongue hung out, crimson and bloated. Blood oozed from his mouth, nose, and ears, soaking the floor beneath him. The altar was destroyed, ceremonial objects shattered. The jar containing the fetus and heart Ethan had delivered was in pieces on the ground. The red cloth and talisman that had once covered it were half-burned. The old man had probably been dead for several days. The room reeked of death. In a terrified frenzy, Ethan turned and tried to flee, but the door slammed shut behind him. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open it. He pounded on it, screamed, and begged for help, but now, only the heavens could save him. His time had come. The time to pay for his crimes. Suddenly, a sharp, high-pitched voice echoed from behind the altar. Ethan. I missed you. Where are you going? Why are you running? Come back to me and our baby. Then came a burst of gleeful laughter, piercing and twisting. The sound went into Ethan's brain like needles, making his head throb. Please, forgive me. I know I was wrong. Please, spare me, he pleaded, dropping to his knees in despair. From the dark corner behind the altar, two ghostly figures crawled out, one large, one small. The tall one was the spirit of Lon, now a wrathful demon consumed by vengeance, twisted by the injustice of her brutal death. The small one was the fetus, partially transformed through Master Jayap's incomplete ritual. Perhaps his powers were insufficient, or perhaps it was karma for aiding evil. Either way, the mother and child had killed him. Spare you. Lon said with a chilling smile. Did you think about the consequences when you killed me? You're worse than an animal. You didn't just kill me, you murdered your own child, still growing in my womb. With that, she lunged at him, grabbing his throat. Her hair stood on end, covering his face. Her eyes blazed with fury. Her hands tightened around his neck. Then, a blinding light burst from the necklace around Ethan's neck. It was the pendant his mother had left him before she died. He had always worn it. The light forced the spirits back, giving Ethan a chance to break free. He bolted out of the room. Behind him, darkness clawed at his heels, trying to drag him back into that nightmare. He dove into his Mercedes and slammed the door shut. From behind came a man's voice, echoing through the night. You can run, but evil always wins. You won't escape. Your mother saved you once, but she won't save you again. Then came that haunting, insane laughter, echoing through the endless night. Ethan sped away into the storm. The rain fell in torrents, just like on that fateful night. His car surged forward into the downpour. Lost. Desperate. He glanced to his right and froze. There it was again, kilometer 13. That familiar sign, white letters on a deep blue background. Right where he had thrown the sack over the bridge. There, through the mist and rain, two pale figures stood on the roadside, facing him. From somewhere in the wind came a voice. Give me back my life, give me back my life. He recognized him, and the demon child she had become. Without thinking, Ethan screamed. Die. All of you. Leave me alone. He floored the gas pedal, aiming straight at the two figures. The car sped up, but suddenly lost control. It veered off the road, smashed through the bridge railing, and plunged into the river below. Within 5 minutes, the Mercedes was gone, swallowed by the deep, black waters. The river claimed another sinner's life. Blood was repaid with blood. On the bridge, the two pale figures slowly faded into the rain and vanished. The next morning, people discovered a broken railing on the bridge and a car submerged in the river. Police divers pulled the vehicle from the water. It took a long time to recover Ethan's body, still strapped inside. His corpse was curled, face frozen in a mask of terror. Nearby, two sacks had floated to the surface. When opened, the investigators recoiled in horror, a woman's dismembered body, limbs and head in one bag, the torso in the other, stomach slit open, heart missing. Tests confirmed the body was Lon, a waitress who had gone missing over a week earlier. The man in the car was identified as Ethan Liu, 26. Cause of death, drunk driving, leading to a crash off the bridge. At the psychiatric hospital, Mr. Thomas sat beside Emily, watching the news. Her condition had worsened, and he had decided to admit her for long-term care. When the report of Ethan's death aired, and the discovery of the two sacks, Mr. Thomas was stunned. He pieced it all together. Finally, he whispered. It's karma. Justice, at last. He turned to his daughter. Emily stared blankly at the screen, then burst into laughter. Wild, crazed, unhinged. Serves him right, serves him right. Ha ha ha. At the police station, Mr. Thomas gave his full testimony. Emily had gone mad. Ethan was dead. No one left to charge. He claimed the body and arranged for proper burials, both for Ethan and what remained of Lon. He then visited a monastery and asked the head monk to perform a 49-day ceremony to help guide Lon and the child's spirits to one peace. The prayer ritual took 3 full days and nights, right there on the way to kilometer 13. When it was done, the monk led the mother and child's spirits back to the temple, to guide them toward enlightenment and prevent further harm to the innocent. Mr. Thomas felt some peace. Evil had been punished. The story was over. He sold his business and donated half his fortune to the monastery. The other half he used to care for Emily, moving into the hospital to be with her full time. He hoped it might help atone for what his daughter had done. Emily, now broken and lost in madness, spent her days cradling a pillow, singing lullabies to her phantom child. Hush now, my baby, sleep in peace. While mommy fetches water to wash away pain.